Hi, welcome to the Bod Academy Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Croghan, your Bod transformation specialist. And this series and topic is going to be around our fat furnace hacks. And today I have the privilege of inviting on Sean Harley, an amazing husband to his wife, Mindy, a previous IFBB Professional Classic Physique competitor, a certified fitness professional, International Fitness Magazine cover model, actor, owner, and founder of Rocksolid Nutrition with cutting-edge supplements and world-class training programs such as the Physique Masterclass, with over 20 years of experience in the fitness and health industry. Mr. Harley is a respected figure, serving as a friend, a mentor to me, and a distinguished personality. I am pleased to engage with him today in this discussion, and he is one awesome guy. And welcome aboard, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me back. I think it was about 3 years to the day that we did this last time. I just had the Facebook memory pop up just like yesterday. And so, yeah, it's almost our three-year anniversary from our first conversation. And so looking forward to having another one here.
Aren't we cute? That's awesome.
Yeah.
So today, our aim is to offer you valuable concrete information along with actionable steps to give you a rock-solid body transformational journey. After listening today, you will feel equipped with practical advice to help you become a stronger version of yourself. We will share our professional insights on and our experiences, highlighting the best practices that we have observed in the industry with both ourselves and our clients over the years. This session will focus specifically more on fat loss, where Sean will speak on how you can optimize your body's metabolism through supplementation, nutrition, workouts, and daily routines to boost your outcomes for your body transformation and success. And Sean, we'll start with question number one. What are the most common misconceptions about fat loss that people still believe today?
Well, there's a few of them. I think any fat loss conversation needs to start with just a basic understanding of calories in, calories out. I think that's a big misconception people have, is just not understanding the basic principle of weight loss, which is calories in, calories out. And so that refers to the balance of caloric energy that your body takes in and burns off, right? So calories in is the food that you're eating. How many calories are you taking in? Calories in. And then calories out is how many your body burns off every day. And so that's done through multiple ways. It's how much you're burning off through exercise, how much you're burning off through your just basic movements throughout the day, going up the stairs, petting the dog. Every movement we do burns calories. It is your basal metabolic rate, so how many calories your body's burning at just a resting state throughout the day. It's your digestion. Your body burns calories just digesting the food that you eat, and some foods have a higher energy requirement for digestion than others. And so all those add up into the calories out. And so, the basic principle is to just be burning off more calories than you're taking in. And so move more, eat less holds true. Now, it can get a little more complex than that too, but that basic understanding, I think, is what most people need to understand to lose weight. And then from there, some other common misconceptions I see, and with that calories in, calories out, some people that do maybe understand that a little bit, they may take that to the extreme and just try to starve themselves and try to just do these starvation diets, and that's kind of what we see with like Ozempic, right? It's just appetite control and people aren't hungry. And so they're just not eating. And so, yes, you're going to lose some weight. But the problem with that is that a lot of the weight that you lose is going to be muscle mass. And so if you're not eating enough protein to maintain your muscle mass or to grow more muscle mass, if you're in a big caloric deficit, a lot of that weight, up to 75% of that weight or more is just going to be muscle mass that you lose. And so your muscle is a little more, your body needs, it's a little more metabolically advantageous for your body to burn that muscle mass than it is body fat, right? Because that muscle requires energy and it requires substance. And if you're not giving your body that, it doesn't need that. Or body fat doesn't require any of that, right? It's just like stored energy. And so your body will, dip into that muscle mass first when it's under the starvation mode. So I think that's a pretty important one. And then also just feeding your body the nutrients it needs to function, vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, There's a whole bunch of different chemical reactions going on in your body every day, and you can't survive just off oxygen and ice cubes alone. You've got to be feeding it certain nutrients for those things to take place, to feed your immune system, to feed your brain, to feed everything, right? And so those important ones. I think another one is that carbs will make you fat is probably the biggest misconception I hear.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people have been taught to be scared of carbs, or that, if you eat a carb, it's going to turn right to fat. And so, I've done bodybuilding shows and I eat carbs all the way up to my bodybuilding show and get absolutely shredded to the bone. And the thing about carbs is that carbs are an energy source and you just got to treat them as such, right? And so if you have carbs and you use them as energy, you move, you work out, your body is active, those carbs aren't going to store as body fat. They're going to go to energy, or they'll become stored energy inside your muscles in the form of glycogen. Your brain and your liver hold a lot of glycogen as well. So you got storage for these carbs. But if your storage is filled up, your glycogen levels are filled up in your brain, your liver, and your muscle, and then you're still eating a whole bunch of carbs, you're eating all this extra energy. And if you're not moving enough to burn those off, then it's going to become stored energy in the form of body fat. And so that's how carbs can turn to fat if you have too many and you're not burning those off. But carbs in general are nothing to be afraid of. It's just energy. And I start every day with, I do morning workouts right now, and I get up and I have 3 or 4 scoops of just pure dextrose, which is just pure blood sugar, basically pure glycogen into your muscles. So it's like the simplest form of carbohydrate. And I have that with essential amino acids. And then I go work out. And when I go work out, I'm using those carbs, those simple sugars, as an energy source. I'm pumping it, using them to pump the amino acids to my muscles, to fuel my workout, to get a good workout, to pump those carbohydrates into my muscles where they are burned off as energy or stored as glycogen, filling my muscles, making them plump. And carbs create insulin, and insulin is anabolic. Anabolic means muscle building. And so when you have carbs with amino acids around your workout time, before and after, you get an anabolic effect from that insulin. That insulin helps put those amino acids into your muscles where they can repair your muscles and help them grow and get bigger. So carbs are a tool, they're an energy source. And if you use them correctly, you don't have to worry about putting on body fat simply by eating carbohydrates. That makes sense?
That does make sense. No, I think that's you did a great job touching up on the misconception of that. And you talked about also with just protein and digestive periods. I thought that was a really good key. And then when you were talking about the carbohydrates, specifically what you were using, there's 2 different types of carbohydrates: simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. Which ones do you typically like to play with or manipulate in your diet before a workout or after a workout? Or do you have like any favorites that you think are really good go-tos for you or maybe your clients?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So, simple carbohydrates, if you're not familiar with the glycemic index, that is a scale of the insulin response that carbohydrates give you. And so at the top of that, we have the more simple carbohydrates, like dextrose and sugar and things like that, sugary foods, cookies, ice cream, sweets like that, certain fruits, grapes, and things like that. And those are fast absorbing. And because they're fast absorbing, they give a quicker insulin response. And therefore, it's a quicker blood sugar spike and then quicker energy too. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have more fibrous carbs, more like sweet potatoes or whole grains. Those things are slower digesting. And because they're slower digesting, you get a slower insulin response. And so it's more of a gradual kind of curve of that insulin response. And therefore, you won't have much of a chance of storing those as body fat if you don't burn those off right away. So I like simple carbs around the workout time. So like before or after the workout time, that's a great time to have simple carbohydrates, especially with amino acids or protein. Protein is amino acids. But so for instance, I take before the workout, like I said, I do dextrose with our essential amino acids product. And what that does is they're simple and they're fast absorbing. So they get into my bloodstream right away. I want that to be digested and absorbed into my bloodstream so that when I hit the workout, I can use that energy, use those carbs, use that anabolic effect from the insulin to help fuel my workout and fuel my muscles. And then post-workout is another good time to have your simple carbs. Now, post-workout, we've just drained our muscles down. We've drained our glycogen stores in our muscles. And so the carbs that I have there are going to replenish those glycogen stores. Glycogen just means stored sugar inside the muscles. And so it's like stored energy in the muscles. And so if I have that post-workout after draining my glycogen stores, I'm going to replenish those. It's also going to take the amino acids. I'll have that with a whey protein shake. Whey protein is another fast absorbing source of amino acids. And so taking that post-workout, the insulin is going to drive the sugar, the simple carbs, and the amino acids from the whey protein to my muscles, and it helps them get inside the muscle cells where they can start that repair process and that growth process. Now, if there are any other times besides before and after the workout, those are better times to have more of the complex carbs, the more slower digesting carbs. And so if I'm having dinner in the evening, I don't necessarily want to have a bunch of sugary foods there, but if I have some sweet potatoes or some more whole grain type carbs or fibrous vegetable type carbs, those aren't going to create this quick blood sugar spike and insulin spike. And it's going to be more of a slow release that my body can assimilate over the period of a few more hours. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. No, I think you nailed that. That was
Yeah.
really good. It's kind of like a sponge, right?
Yeah, that's a great
Like
analogy.
depleting out a sponge, and then that those carbohydrates are your glycogen, right?
hmm
Kind of replenishes
Yeah, yeah.
the sponge back up like a muscle.
Yep. And you don't, if you had a dry sponge and you just poured a bunch of water on it too, it's going to kind of spill over, and that spillover
Right.
may represent body fat, right? But if
Body
you're
fat.
pouring that on slowly and taking that in smaller doses, then you're absorbing, the sponge is absorbing that water, right? That's a great
Yeah.
analogy. Yeah.
I love that. No, you nailed that. And so for those of you listening, carbs are not your enemy. They are your friend. It's when
Yeah.
you're utilizing those carbs and the timing of those carbs, as Sean said, and learning to manipulate them in the right way to benefit you, right?
Yeah. And carbs are energy. So just look at
Yeah.
them as energy. Think of them as energy. If you have a bunch of simple carbs and you've got a bunch of energy, if you just go sit on your butt for the rest of the day, that energy is not going to be burned off. But if you go for a walk or go work out or do any type of movement, go gardening, whatever it is, mow the lawn, you're going to burn some of those carbs off, a lot of those carbs off.
Yeah. Stay active. And
Yeah, move the body.
I saw your the research you posted the other day on sweet potato. I love sweet potato.
Yeah.
I love that you're always staying up to date with what's out there, and just really
Yeah.
cool studies coming out right now that you're always posting, and I love.
Yeah. That research was about the gut microbiome, and
Yeah,
it showed that sweet potatoes are beneficial to the gut microbiome, specifically because of the fiber and the polyphenols in there. I just posted another study, I think last week, talking about Ozempic and how your body produces its own natural Ozempic when you eat things like sweet potatoes and different fruits and vegetables, because they're unprocessed foods. Processed foods, they take out a lot of the fiber and the polyphenols. Polyphenols are just these phytonutrients and different chemicals in the foods that your body needs for a whole bunch of different processes. And so processed foods, they usually take that out and strip it kind of bare. But when you're eating whole foods, fruits and vegetables and different things like that, it contains this fiber, these polyphenols. And when you eat those, your gut signals that you've eaten stuff and that you've got the nutrients that you need. And so it makes that GLP-1 hormone, which is Ozempic, which is Wegovy. Like they make this, they are this GLP-1 hormone, but your body creates that itself when you eat things like sweet potatoes and you eat these other foods. And so that signals to your brain that you're not hungry anymore. You've gotten the nutrition that you needed, right? And so when you don't get that nutrition, when you're eating processed foods all the time, your body doesn't make that GLP-1 hormone as it should in a healthy situation. And so therefore you're triggered that you're more hungry. That's kind of the same reason why, you can go eat a number one at McDonald's and have 1,200 calories or whatever it is, and put that down and then be hungry an hour later. But if you go eat 1,200 calories of whole food, of chicken breasts and vegetables and sweet potatoes, you're going to be full for a while longer. Your body's got that signal, that GLP-1 hormone telling you that you're not hungry anymore because it's got the nutrition that it needs, right? And so, yeah, that makes kind of a big difference.
That's great. You know, it's interesting that, you know, you you know, people wouldn't think about the chemical reaction or the chemical responses, and chemical responses also having a hormonal response on your body with different types of foods, you know, and
Yeah,
you know, like you're even talking about, you know, eating more whole food based, you know, and specifically even, you know, eating organic, and how that
yeah,
can, so versus, you know, not taking the organic approach, and how that can affect your gut health and your your body's chemistry. And
yeah.
uh, you're nailing some really good stuff there. And I'm glad that you always talk about this stuff, because it's super it's super important, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a really good point too. There's maybe 2 points we can expand on when it comes
Mhm.
to choosing the organic option versus the non-organic option for these very reasons. One is organic food has a higher nutrient content because of the soil that it's grown in. So when they spray these non-organic foods with pesticides and herbicides, they kill the soil microbiome, right? And the microbiome in the soil is what creates the nutrients in the soil for the vegetables or the fruits to uptake from, right? And so if the soil's dead, basically with a dead microbiome because it got poison sprayed all over it, and just like this poison's meant to kill other weeds or other bugs, it's going to kill these microbiomes and this algae in the soil. And so, organic food isn't having those same pesticides and herbicides sprayed on it. Now, some organic practices are different than others, and there's some gray areas here, but in general, the organic food's not getting all that poison sprayed on it. And so it comes from a healthier soil microbiome. And so it has more of the vitamins and minerals and nutrients. There was a study from the University of Texas that said we'd have to eat 8 oranges today to equal the vitamin C in one orange in 1980. And a lot of that is
Yeah,
just from,
that tells you something.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of that is just from modern farming practices depleting the soil. And so there's some farmers out here. I've got some here in Nebraska, some friends that are farmers that do regenerative farming. And these are just practices where they're just growing different crops, bringing the cattle over to the field so they can fertilize instead, and doing different things to the soil to keep a healthy microbiome in that soil. The other reason to choose organic over non-organic fruits and vegetables and wheat products and everything else is gut microbiome health. And so there's a lot of studies out there about glyphosate. Glyphosate is Roundup. It's Monsanto's, main product. Monsanto's bought by Bayer now, pharmaceutical company. Interesting. And glyphosate specifically has been studied for its disruptions on the gut microbiome. And it specifically shows that it disrupts healthy bacteria and it promotes bad bacteria like salmonella. So, like those things thrive in glyphosate conditions in your gut where the healthy stuff dies. And, and you may not think gut microbiome is important, but once you understand that 70 to 80% of your immune system comes from your gut microbiome, that's a pretty big deal. And the gut microbiome is being studied a lot with different neurological disorders now. And this is kind of newer since about 2015 or so. There's been a lot of science coming out about this. And there's a study specifically about glyphosate disrupting your gut microbiome and causing depression and neurological disorders. And more recently, there's been studies linking gut health to Alzheimer's and autism and other neurological disorders too. And so that's a pretty big reason to try to avoid glyphosate as much as possible because, your gut and your brain, there's a gut brain axis there and they're constantly communicating with each other. And when the gut is disrupted, it leads to depression. It leads to you doing actions that you may not normally do, in a negative aspect. And so it's a pretty big deal. They call it your second brain for a reason. And a lot of your neurotransmitters, serotonin and these things are created in your gut. Like 90% of your serotonin is actually created in your gut, you know?
Wow, I didn't know
So
about yeah, I didn't know about that.
yeah,
I didn't know
yeah.
about the percentage of it. Wow, that's yeah, that's super interesting. And you when you touched up on the neurological aspect of it, that's super interesting, you know, especially with all the new evidence and research that's coming out, like you talked about, uh,
Mhm.
with that stuff. You know, you obviously, why that's so important is because, I mean, the guy who's preaching this and talking about this, I don't typically see Sean depressed. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and or sick, So, and when you do see a lot of people who are, eating organic and eating whole foods and choosing the type of foods that they eat and more conscious about it, like, yeah, their gut's strong, so their immune system's strong and neurological function strong, and they're overall just performing at a little bit higher level than most people, right? You'd
Yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so, just to give some action steps here. So like two really easy things that you can do just to have a healthy gut microbiome is one, avoid the glyphosate, read up on what glyphosate is, learn what's in it. Maybe familiarize yourself with what's called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, which are these foods that have been studied by this one organization that they recommend. The Dirty Dozen are like the 12 biggest offenders for glyphosate. And so those are the ones you want to make sure that you get organic. And then the Clean 15 don't have as big of a problem. And if you don't get organic on those, it's not the end of the world. And so avoiding glyphosate is one really good thing you can do for your gut microbiome, and probably the most prevalent issue that people have. And this is also in your breads, in your wheats, in your oatmeal. Oatmeal is one of the biggest offenders here too. And so, getting organic on all those stuff is going to help. And then the second thing, and so that's going to stop, disruption of your gut microbiome, killing of the good bacteria. And then the second thing that we can do is add good bacteria in. And you can do that through a couple different ways, but the easiest is just eating fermented foods. I particularly am keen on the sauerkraut. And so sauerkraut is just fermented cabbage. And it's you want to eat it raw. You don't want to cook it because it has live bacteria in it. And so you want to eat that because of the live bacteria. So you got to get the refrigerated stuff at the grocery store and you got to eat it raw. And so I just take a couple forkfuls, just like a supplement, just like a spoonful of medicine every day, and just down the hatch. And another interesting thing about sauerkraut is that it has more vitamin C than any other food in the world, which is pretty amazing. And that has to do with the
Really?
fermentation process that it goes through. Yeah.
Wow.
And sauerkraut it's basically cabbage and salt, right? And cabbage by itself has like 75 milligrams of vitamin C. But after it becomes sauerkraut and goes through that process, it has like 750 milligrams. So like 10x is the vitamin C content of the cabbage just by turning it into sauerkraut. So it's helping your immune system through the vitamin C content and then through feeding your gut microbiome healthy live bacteria.
I'm gonna have to give that a try.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. Like I said, it's the easiest thing you can do. And a lot of people
Hey,
don't like
how's
the
it?
taste of sauerkraut, but
Yeah, it's the
it
take.
grows on you real quick. You eat it for a month. By
Does
the end of
it?
that, you're gonna be
Okay.
craving it. And you're gonna be taking shots, straight from the teat.
Okay. No, that's really cool. I didn't know that. It's
Yeah,
it's really cool to be in this generation of research and everything that's coming out of the woodworks. I mean, who would have
yeah.
thought that we'd be sitting here talking about, your gut health and microbiome and, like in
Hmm.
certain foods, like nobody would have thought, really touched on this, and it's coming
Yeah.
out more and more gut health. It's just super essential, it's a filtering system for your body,
Yeah,
uh,
and that's kind of new research there too. Like this,
yeah,
these,
super
these
new, right?
connections to dimension and all and also whatever the other words.
Alzheimer's.
Oh, sorry, I think I just had a little Alzheimer's there. Um, like that's all very, very recent research, and even just the discovery of the importance of the gut microbiome is within the last 10 years here. So we do live at very interesting times, and we live in the age of information where any of us can go online and look up scientific
Totally.
studies and learn, and doctors are on social media sharing what they're discovering and their knowledge. And yeah, it's a great time. Something our parents didn't have in that generation, I feel bad for them because, they grew up in, the 50s, 60s, 70s, back when food was food and the prepackaged food didn't dominate the grocery stores quite so much. And people didn't just eat prepackaged food and, restaurants and everything else all the time. They ate more whole foods. They were more active. It wasn't quite the convenient society we have today. So, I see, people like my parents' age who are like in their 70s now, and they didn't have to worry about the tap water containing prescription drugs and fluorides and all kinds of stuff in it. And they didn't have to worry about the food having all kinds of different dangerous chemicals and pesticides and herbicides and you name it in there. And so, the ones that haven't caught on to that yet are, you know,
They're prone to it, right?
yeah, prone to be a victim to it.
Yeah. Are your parents pretty healthy for the most part? They're kind of like you, or
Well, I mean, they're kind of who I'm referencing here, actually. Like they were like hard workers their whole life. They both grew up
right.
in the country on farms, and then worked, my mom was a nurse, and so she was healthy in that kind of area. But they gardened and they ate whole foods, meat and potatoes and veggies, every night for dinner kind of
Right.
stuff.
Live off the earth.
Yeah, yeah. And then, my dad was, be moving and working all day. But now that they're older and retired in their 70s, they don't move so much anymore, and that they eat the foods that are in our mainstream society as much. And they don't listen to me about this stuff, unfortunately, because yeah, we won't have to get into all that.
It's the
But
new age, right? It's
yeah,
the
yeah,
new age
because
information.
again, because when they were younger, they didn't have to think about this food. It wasn't
They turned
poisoned
out
like it
fine,
is
right?
today. Yeah, and so it's hard. I try to make them see the light, but yeah.
That's
I
funny. Yeah, my family's the same way.
love them
Um,
though.
no, those are great. Yeah, those are great action
Yeah.
steps, Sean. I appreciate you diving down even deeper with that, and then giving
Mhm.
steps to take that you could start with right away. Um, our next question is, can you explain the role of the metabolism in weight loss and how individuals can effectively boost their metabolic rate?
Yeah, yeah. So metabolism is basically just the speed that our body runs and like how much energy our body burns throughout the day. And so there are some things that we can do to increase that. One is weightlifting, adding muscle mass. Just the process of exercising in general is going to help raise your metabolism, burn more calories, etc. But then also for every pound of muscle we create, the rule of thumb is like every pound of muscle, it's 100 calories that we burn. I don't think it's quite that clear, but in general, the more muscle we get, the more calories we burn off throughout the day. And so the more you can eat and not have it turn to body fat, right? And so muscle is metabolically active tissue. And so it's requires energy. And so it's burning off calories, throughout the day. And then just moving more, your metabolism slows down. If you're just, if you spend the day on the couch dozing in and out of consciousness, you're not going to burn too many calories, right? But if you just get up and move your body, going up and down the stairs once or twice, parking at the far end of the grocery store parking lot, any opportunity just to move your body a little bit more it really adds up to the day, and it really makes a pretty big difference. So just being active and just moving. And if you're sitting at a desk, all day working like most people do these days, then just having like little breaks, that some people call them workout snacks, but getting up every hour and doing like 10 body weight squats, even that makes a pretty big difference. It pumps up your blood sugar, and it gets those muscles kind of moving, gets the blood moving, and gets that metabolism moving again. So any type of movement is going to help with that, and then, like I said, it really adds up. Um, High intensity exercise specifically kind of has a longer afterburn effect. It's called post exercise oxygen consumption, but it's the body burning more calories for hours and hours after the workout. And so specifically high intensity exercise has shown to raise your metabolism for up to 48 hours after that session. So if you have a hard like hit session like sprints or even just a hard weightlifting session, you can be burning more calories for up to 2 days afterwards. So that afterburn is pretty powerful too. But to really experience that, you got to bring the intensity in your workouts, and you got to push yourself, get that heart rate up and down, and that'll do the job there too. And there's supplements you can take too, obviously. And so different pills that you can take. My company has a product called High Metabolism. And so we put a couple different stimulants in there that also just raise your metabolism. And so, hey, there it is. Nice. And so even if you are just sitting at your desk all day, your body's just running a little bit faster, burning more calories. And there's other stuff in that product too that helps you there, but we can get into that. But from a metabolism standpoint, your metabolism is just running a little faster and you're burning more calories throughout the day.
No, that's a great touch up. And, specifically to you speaking to somebody at a desk all day, I work at my desk quite a bit. So I have a standing desk, so I try to stand so, that I can
Oh,
really,
good for you.
and then
Nice.
I do the exact same thing, but I think those are great key points is like get a standing desk, walking, parking further away, taking a few, when you go up the stairs, maybe take an extra flight and go back down and go back up. I set a timer on my phone where I'll stand up from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. Um,
Wow.
I'll just stand at my desk and then I'll give myself a reward where I can sit for like an hour.
Nice.
And then I'll sit down and I'll eat and then I'll do some push-ups and squats and stuff like that. And then
Great.
I'll go in and take my high metabolism and
Hmm.
your product, and it's super good because it gets me right over the hump of the day, and really helps with my appetite, and it really helps get me like refocused, and I can actually feel the thermic effect um taking place, like,
Yeah.
so it feels
Yeah.
good, and it keeps me going, and then keeping my body moving as well throughout the day like that is definitely helps. So anybody that is at a desk, try to get a standing desk. If you can't get a standing desk, try to move around a lot more, again, and then don't be skeptical to the muscle. You need muscle, like Sean said, it's up to 100 calories per pound muscle is what you said, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Give or take. Like I said, that's
Yeah,
not an exact number, but it's a good,
right.
just kind of rule of thumb. Yeah.
Yeah, and with that, you're going to be able to, you know, for every new pound of muscle you have, the more calories you'll burn, like you said. So it's
Exactly.
super essential and super important. So no, those are all great takeaways.
Yeah. I need to get on that standing desk level.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. You like it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. I do. Yeah, I just got one off of Amazon, and it's been night and day because I was having some posture problems. I could just tell, like, it was just, you got to move your legs. You have to move your legs.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people just, suffer from tight hip flexors too. If you're
Hmm.
in that seated position all day and that hip flexors in
Yep.
its short position there,
And I started noticing that. I started
causes a
noticing
lot
that
of
a lot.
posture
Yeah.
issues. Yeah.
Hmm.
So when you're standing there, do you kind of correct your posture and try
I
to
do.
put your
Yep.
hips in a neutral position and back
Yep.
straight and all that? Good for you,
Yep.
man. That's
Yep.
great.
And I'll do like, I'll practice like a 15 to 20-second deep squat, and I'll just kind of
Yeah,
sit in it,
yeah.
and then, do some push-ups, and then, sometimes I'll run outside and I'll get some sunlight, the first sunlight,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
ground and work on some
Mm-hmm.
work. But
Oh.
just like those small, simple things, I know not everybody has that accessibility, but
Mm-hmm.
it really goes far. So I love that you
It really
touched
does.
up on
Yeah.
that.
Down for all that. Absolutely.
Um, Next question we got is, does lifting weights slow down or impact fat loss in a negative way? Is one more important than the other? And I think you kind of touched up on that a little bit, but if you want to,
Yeah, we can go a little deeper into that. But
yeah,
yeah, lifting weights is probably the best thing you can do to lose weight. A lot of people think that, okay, I'm going to lose weight. I just need to get in there and do cardio. And cardio is, great and all. It's good for your heart and your lungs. And yes, you are burning off some calories and fat, but it's a very slow process. I don't know if you ever gotten on a machine and you got on the treadmill for 45 minutes and you look down, it said you burned 200 calories. And you're like, that's like 2 bites from a Snickers bar. I watched 45 minutes for that. And so it's a very inefficient way to use for fat loss, whereas weightlifting burns a lot more calories, has a bigger effect on that afterburn effect. So you're burning those calories for hours and hours afterwards. You're also building this metabolically active tissue, as we talked about before, that the more you have of it, the more calories you're going to burn. And then there's also a couple other reasons too, is as you get more muscle mass and as you, especially muscle that's been exercised, that increase its glycogen storage abilities, your body can store more carbohydrates, more glycogen, right? And so, if me and somebody that had 50 pounds less muscle than me, we both go eat a meal that has 100 carbohydrates, I've got more storage capacity for that 100 carbs, right? I've got muscle for that to go into, where somebody that doesn't have very much muscle mass, they're going to fill up pretty quick because their storage capacity is pretty low. And so the rest of that 100 carbs is going to spill over into body fat, right? And so that's another reason why more muscle mass is important. And that's connected to your insulin receptors too. Like a muscle has insulin receptors. And so the more muscle you have, the more insulin receptors you have. And then again, the more carbohydrates and things that you can eat without that storing as body fat. So yeah. So I mean, if you want to lose weight, lift the weights.
Lift the weights. And
Yeah, yeah. If you want to
like
lose fat specifically, because scale weight, when you're weightlifting, you may be building muscle at the same time, and so the scale may not always tell the full story. But if you want to lose body fat,
right.
lift the weights. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and like you said too, with the insulin, Sean said earlier that insulin is anabolic, right? So keep
yeah,
that keep that in mind,
yeah.
and being able to have more glycogen storage is essential to, also your energy expenditure as well. So
Hmm.
yeah, no, that's solid. And then with the lifting weight aspect, um, would there be a certain tempo that you would recommend for people to that would um, be more optimal for building muscle tissue?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I've researched extensively, and that I teach all my clients, and something my master class is a big part of this. But yeah, when it comes to tempo, we have the eccentric, we have the contraction. Eccentric being I'm sorry, let's start with concentric. Concentric is the shortening of the muscle. So in a bicep curl, it's when you're curling up, you're shortening the muscle. And then you have the contraction, the top of that bicep curl. And then you have the eccentric, which is the lengthening of that muscle, lowering the weight, dropping the weight. So basically those three aspects of it. And so we can look at the science and we can see what has been shown to be the most effective for recruiting the maximum amount of muscle fibers in each one of those phases. And so, and what that says is on the concentric, if you go faster, if you accelerate through the contraction, you're going to send, and a lot of this comes from just the signal that your brain's sending to the muscle. And so when you try to go faster, you send a stronger signal, you create more power, and you recruit more muscle fibers, and you get faster results. Kind of like if I was going to throw a punch at you, if I go really slow with that punch, I'm not going to do a lot to you. Even if I'm really big and strong, it's going to hit you, and you're just going to, it might push you a little bit, and nothing's no damage done. But if I go fast and I send a strong fast signal, you're going to feel that one. And so same thing with lifted weights. You're going to have more power. You're going to hit a stronger mental signal to those muscles, and you're going to recruit more muscle fibers. Same, it's the difference between sprinting and walking, right? So sending stronger signals to those muscles, firing off more muscle fibers. And then the contraction, getting a good isometric squeeze at that contraction. I like to just pause for a beat. It depends on the exercise or the lift that you're doing, but most of them, if it's especially isometric or isolation exercise, getting just a little pause, letting that muscle stay in that contracted position just for at least a beat. And then the negative, the eccentric phase, what can we do there? Is it going to be recruit more muscle fibers to just relax and let gravity take the weight, or to go slow and to fight that weight and to make those muscles work? I think the answer is kind of obvious. And so when you go slower through that negative phase, again, we're sending mental signals to those muscle fibers. They're firing off, they're working as we lower that weight, and we're going to get a faster response from the muscle. Make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
yeah, I like the yeah, you do talk about the mind to muscle connection quite a bit, and
Yeah.
how important it is. And yeah, you touch up on it in your Physique Masterclass, which you have
Hmm.
tons tons of awesome testimonies coming out of there, out of that program, and what you created with that. So that's
Yeah. Thank
super
you.
cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah. The basis, I call it the mind muscle method, and the basis of it is the mind muscle connection. And that, as there was a study done in 2012 that kind of looked at the mind muscle connection. And what they did, they had these college age guys doing the bench press, and they put electrodes onto the three major movers of the bench press: the chest, the shoulders, and the triceps. And so they just had them do bench press. They took the measurements of the muscle fiber recruitment on those three muscles, got the baseline, and then they said, okay, I want you to mentally focus your attention on using your chest to move the weight. And so the form stayed the same, the tempo stayed the same, but just by thinking about it, they recruited 22% more muscle fibers in the chest, which is like a quarter more muscle fibers. It's quite a bit. And then they said, okay, now stop focusing on the chest and focus on the triceps. And so again, without changing the hand position or anything else, just by thinking about the triceps, the chest goes back to baseline and the triceps go up 26%. And so this just shows us that your muscle fiber, every movement we make starts in the brain, right? And so if I want to move my finger, it starts in my brain, sends a signal down my spine, comes out, and my finger moves, right? It sends a signal to these muscle fibers to contract and move. And so same thing when I'm weightlifting. And so what they found is that that's kind of like a dimmer switch, on a light, a light in your room that maybe has one of those knobs that you can turn the dimmer switch on, and you can turn the knob up stronger and send a stronger signal to that light bulb and get a bigger response. You can send a weaker signal and dim it down and get a less response. Same thing kind of works here with your brain being the dimmer switch and your muscles being the light bulb. You can send a stronger signal, recruit more muscle fibers. And so having that mind muscle connection, which is really just staying present in your workout and focusing, if you're doing a bicep curl, you're looking at that bicep, you're feeling it contract, you're visualizing it in your head, lengthen and shorten, and you're just staying present. You're not thinking about work or somebody else at the gym or anything else. You're just focused on the muscle that you're working at. Just by doing that, you're recruiting 25% more muscle fibers. Now, when you combine that with the tempo, with the accelerating through the contraction, the squeeze, the controlled negative, now we're optimizing every aspect of our lift and we're recruiting the maximum amount of muscle fibers in every aspect there. And that's when you really start getting fast results.
That's great. I love that you talked about the tempo too, and how critical that is, and that you're just not mindlessly going through the lift. But again, you didn't just talk about the science, but you talked about what that actually looks like and feels like. And it's super essential that when you are in your workouts, that you're becoming intimate with your body when you're placing a workload on it. And I love that you touched on the tempo, because it is so important, because you're not just, you have to, there's all kinds of different tempos you can use, especially when it comes to around hypertrophy or building muscle strength and endurance, right? But yeah, working on that tempo and actually being intimate, like, and thinking of what it is that you're working, your workout will just be so much more phenomenal versus just going through the motions. So
yeah, and just building that connection with your body, like you said. And when you're doing that too, you're doing what's called mindfulness. Mindfulness is just being in the moment, focusing, being able to control your focus on one thing and not having the monkey mind just constantly jibber jabbering in your head. And so when you utilize your weightlifting time as a time to practice that mindfulness, practice your mental focus, you become stronger in your ability to focus on stuff. And we live in a day and age where mental focus is a rare commodity. We're just constantly distracted with our phone and with the computers and everything else going on. And, a lot of people just have a hard time focusing. A lot of people can't sit down and read a book. Their brain just won't let them do it. And so it's like anything, it takes exercise and practice, and you can, improve that mental focus, and you can utilize that time in the gym to help and strengthen that mental focus ability too. And to spend more time in mindfulness and less time in stressful monkey mind land.
yeah, that's good. And it's funny how that you talk about that, becoming mindful in your workouts, and how that focus will actually transfer into all the other aspects of your life, and it will help you focus more
Yeah. And
throughout the day.
And it'll help you get better results in the gym too. I call this, in the Physique Masterclass, I call this mindful lifting. But you'll notice this if you pay attention in your workout, whenever you're doing a lift and it starts to get heavy, you're at that 7, 8, 9th rep there and starting to hurt a little bit. Your mind is going to want to wander, and it's going to want to start, okay, think about something else. This is done. I got to set this down now. And it'll happen every time if you pay attention to it. And if you can stay present and you focus that mental, and you say, no, I got 2 more reps, I got 3 more reps, I'm going to stay here and go. And you bring that focus back into what you're doing, you will bust through those extra couple of reps, and you will get more reps than you thought you had when you first thought that you were burned out and hit failure. It's pretty remarkable. And that's really the difference between any elite athlete and an amateur that, has never gotten that far, right? It's their ability to just control themselves and to push themselves through some pain and to push their bodies a little harder where most people would give up. That's the difference between anybody that excels in anything athletic versus somebody that doesn't.
That's really good. And
Yeah.
I think it's perfect what you're talking about, because it's this mindfulness. It sets up for the next question too, which is, could you discuss the psychological aspects of fat loss and how important it is on mental health in achieving weight loss?
Yeah, well, they really go hand in hand. If you're depressed and you're just, low mental energy, it's hard to find the ability to go work out. But at the same time, working out is an antidepressant and a very powerful one. They just did a study last year on this, and it showed that it was a big meta-analysis. They looked at like 100 different studies that looked at this topic, and they concluded that exercise in any shape and form was 1.5 times more effective at curing depression or relieving some of the symptoms of depression, making it better on the spectrum of depression, than medications or therapy. So exercise was 1.5 times more effective at depression than antidepressant drugs. And all you got to do is move your body. And it showed like the more intense exercise is more effective than less intense, but even the less intense exercise was beneficial and, 1.5 times more beneficial than drugs or therapy, which is just amazing. And it makes sense because I think it was, 21 or 22, they had a study showing that antidepressants, specifically the serotonin, the ones that increase serotonin, doesn't work, and the science behind those have been bunk since day one, and that's not even how depression works. And so it's no wonder that exercise is better than them, because science shows that they don't work, even though they're still selling them left and right. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, if you are, feeling depressive and stuff, and we've all been there, we've all gone through that, some worse than others, of course. Exercise is one of the best things that you can do. It releases those endorphins, those happy hormones that put you in a good mood. It changes your relationship, with your body, etc. And so there's a multitude of reasons why that works. But really, exercising is just one of the best things you can do when it comes to being depressed, and just feeding your healthy body too, right? Like we talked about gut microbiome and depression, et cetera. There's a bunch of aspects that go into depression. And so it's not like exercise is going to cure all your worries. There's other things to think about, but it's one thing that you can do to help make you better there.
Yeah, it really can. And um, it can help with just, obviously your sleep rhythms as well, and your ability to want to be as triggered. I can tell the difference
Yeah.
between my psychological state when I don't go to the gym, and like take the gym out of it, but like when I don't put my body through a disciplinary action that's going to cause, stress and overload for me for it to have some type of response, right?
Mhm.
And any day that I don't go, I feel it. My wife
Yeah.
feels it. My kids feel it,
Yeah.
And that's why the first
Same.
thing in the morning, that's why I'm a big morning guy. I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going there. I'm gonna get it done because again, you're talking about, dopamine and, serotonin and releasing all those happy hormones. And it's super important because I release those first thing in the morning and when my willpower is the most strongest,
Yeah.
and I can feel that aspect. And when I take like a week off, I can feel like I can feel that I'm not happy, that I don't have energy. Like
Yeah.
there's literally a psychological difference in my mindset when I don't work out or exercise, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Run, but it really does take a toll on you. So I like that you brought that research into it to really full circle why it's important.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of research on exercise and the brain in general, and how beneficial it is to the brain, just in improving cognition, memory, all that stuff too. And one thing that exercise does is it creates more what they call BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is a factor of neuroplasticity. And so it makes your brain more easier to get into neuroplasticity, which is the regenerating new neuron cells and new neural connections and things like that, and pruning off old neural connections too. And so when you exercise, your body has 3 times as much BDNF than it does normally. And so your brain becomes in this very plastic state where you can regenerate new neurons, new connections. And so all that stuff helps with just your performance at work, your performance in your relationship, your performance with the connection to yourself, all that stuff, healthier brain in general, and depression, etc.
Yeah. And it's great that you just brought up the um, uh, brain-derived neurotrophic factor portion of
Mm-hmm.
it, because the next question is around intermittent fasting. And don't quote me on this. I believe I read it. This is probably a couple of years ago, but I read a study around specifically intermittent fasting. I think it was like an 18 or 16-hour window where that brain neurotrophic factor increased by like 400% after a long fast, specifically incorporated with a workout too. But I like that you talk about that. And I think doesn't lion's mane have some nootropic to it as well?
Yeah, lion's mane is neuroregenerative as well, and so it helps your brain grow new neural connections and new synapses, etc. Lion's mane also has fat burning properties in it as well, and we put that in our high metabolism product. One for the fat burning properties, and two for the mental focus and the mental aspects of that too, right? You
Yeah.
know, when you're losing weight sometimes and you're in this caloric deficit, a lot of times you get foggy brained and you just, you can't focus at work, etc. Um, and so we put that in there to help combat some of those lesser desirable side effects of dieting.
Is that a new enhanced ingredient that you guys added recently?
Yeah,
A
yeah, it's been in there for a couple of years, maybe two
couple
years now
years?
or
Okay,
so.
gotcha.
But yeah,
Yeah,
but it's the newest generation of that. Yeah, since the last time
yeah.
we've
That's
reformulated that
great.
product a couple times over the years, and yeah.
Yeah, I can tell a difference. Definitely tell a difference. It gives me that. You got to try it, everybody. You got to try it because you won't know what I'm talking about until you try it.
Yeah,
It's really good.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into more of that here on
Yeah.
a couple more questions.
Yep.
Back to that intermittent fasting there.
Yep.
Yeah, so just my take on intermittent fasting in general. Um, it can obviously work to help you lose weight. I think, the main principle of weight loss is calories in, calories out. And so what intermittent fasting does for a lot of people is just, it reduces their feeding window. And so now if I'm only eating during this 6 hour window or 8 hour window or however you choose to do it, then I'm not eating all this other time. And I'm not constantly snacking and drinking beverages with sugar or calories in there, and I've given my digestive system a time to digest. My blood sugar is a little lower, so my body's now dipping into body fat as an energy source. And the main thing is that I'm not eating on a caloric surplus anymore because I'm not, the hours and hours that I was snacking before, I'm not doing that anymore. And so it helps in that regard for weight loss. And so for people that, need some just rules to follow so that they don't overeat and they don't eat too many calories, I think intermittent fasting is definitely an effective way for that. It's not necessarily if you were wanted to just go out and build muscle and your main goal was like muscle building and you want to build that as fast as you can, it's not the most effective way to do that. But when it comes to weight loss and stuff, and especially again for some people that just need some rules to follow and some structure in their diet, so they're not following the standard American diet, the sad diet of just eating junk all day, then it can definitely be effective there too. But fasting in general too is another fascinating topic when we get into like multi-day fasting, like 3 to 7 day fast. Then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's happening in the body that can be beneficial as well.
Yeah, which I've heard you talk about and which you have done yourself, right? A 7 day fast, right?
Yeah, yeah, I've done a 7 day, a 5 day, a 4 day,
Wow.
maybe 2 5 days. Yeah.
Wow.
Start to kind of suck after five
Yeah, I
days.
bet it does. Yeah, I've only done three. I've only
Those
gotten
last
3 days,
2 days aren't
but
very fun,
that's pretty
but no,
crazy.
it's interesting. And yeah, it's something I probably do at least once a year. Maybe I'll do them twice a year. I'll probably do it like around my birthday is kind of my plan. Do like a 7 day fast before my birthday, and then you kind of refresh. But yeah, it's interesting for a couple different aspects. One, you lose a quick 10 pounds of fat, and so that's nice. And your body actually kind of goes into this muscle preservation mode, and so you're like hanging on to muscle. But that's actually just kind of a nice little benefit, I think, of it. Some of the other stuff that happens is autophagy, which is probably the main benefit from longer fasting, multi-day fasting. And autophagy is just your body's kind of cleanup process. You're not feeding it any more building blocks or nutrients for it to work off of. So your body kind of goes into the scavenger mode and just scavenges your body for different things that it's not using any much or that are metabolically more of a liability than other things. And so even like cancers and different things like that, allegedly, I can't, make any claims here or FDA is going to come after me, but it cleans out your body and breaks those things down and uses those as the building blocks that it needs. And so, there's some pretty remarkable research on that and some pretty remarkable claims on that too. I'm not the doctor here to say that that's all true, but there are some doctors that say some pretty magnificent things about it. And there are doctors there's a guy in California, a doctor that runs a clinic called True North, I think it's called. And he has people that, have cancer or something go in there and they do like 30 to 40-day fast over there, but they're like in a retreat type center where they kind of keep them busy all day and help them, medically monitor them and all that stuff. But they have people go in with a tumor and come out without the tumor, and it seems to be working. There's plenty of testimonials. Yeah.
Cool testimonials as well as like reversing, disease and stuff with fasting,
Yeah.
from what they claim, but some people claim, right? Or even doctors themselves. So
yeah, right. Yeah. It's not me claiming this. I get this stuff from, other doctors that are actually working, with the science here.
yeah.
So yeah, pretty remarkable stuff.
Pretty cool.
One other benefit I get too is just an enhanced spirituality experience during this too. And I think like while you're doing a multi-day fast, take that time to tap into that spiritual side more, pray, meditate, whatever it is for you that does that for you. And what you're going to find is that it's just after about 3-4 days, it's just a lot easier to tap into that. And just even in your day to day, colors are a little brighter, you're just a little more present, and everything is just a little more heightened. It's pretty remarkable. True. Yeah. And I think one of that reasons is, my theory on this is that our brain normally it uses 20% of the calories that we eat. It's 5% of our body weight, but it uses 20% of the calories we eat. And your brain is always constantly running. It's that monkey mind that we all have. And it's called the default mode network, which is this loop of thoughts. And, you have 80,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts you had yesterday. And so your brain is just constantly going and burning calories, burning 20% of the food you eat, going to your brain to process this default mode network. And so when you take that food away and you take all those energy away that you're normally eating, now your body kind of switches gears and says, okay, I can't be just wasting all this energy. I need to slow down here. And, I'm going to run out of energy if I just keep this loop going. And so the mind quiets quite a bit. And with that just becomes this more presence and, easier to tap into that spiritual side. It's pretty remarkable.
No, you're actually nailing that on the head. That's so true. And yeah, I've also experienced the same thing myself. So
great.
I get it. Yeah.
And that's why fasting has been part of religious traditions for thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, seriously. Hey, Jesus fasted for 40 days.
Exactly. There you go.
But yeah, there's definitely an experience to it that you'll gain. And again, it's definitely there's a quieting, there's definitely like a reflection, a softness to it is, you really got to get into it though. Like some people just try to hover over like maybe almost a 24. You really, once you get in that 3-day mark, I've never gone past I think 70 to 75 hours, but it really does start to zone in a little bit, and you definitely feel a difference.
Yeah. I find that 4th day to be the best day.
Is that the best day?
Day 2. Yeah, no, like go one more day. If you do it in 3, go for 4, because you're gonna wake up on the 4th day, and that's when your body like really kicks into that ketosis and the ketones are going. And so I usually wake up on the 4th day and you're just kind of buzzing with energy and you're just
okay. I'll have to
it's almost hard to sleep a little bit because you're just got this energy and this clarity. And
I'm gonna take you up on it.
Yeah, and the hunger has kind of gone away by then. Your body just has kind of switched over. But then by like the 5th and 6th day, that starts to come back a little bit, and you start getting a little lower energy. But I find that 4th day to be the best day.
Huh.
So,
okay.
Yeah, if you're gonna do 3, go 4. Spend another 24 hours.
And I'm gonna tag you every single day.
Yeah.
No,
I got you,
honestly, I think
bro.
the first day with the food is the hardest. I think it's just the first day. Second day,
Yeah,
I'm okay. Third day, I actually feel fine, but
yeah. As much you're just so used to eating, you're just kind of bored, and you're just like,
yeah,
this
bored.
kind of sucks.
Yeah.
I like eating.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you just got to get past that part of it. Keep yourself kind of
Um,
busy.
Totally. Is this maybe this incorporates into that next question, but it's what are some sustainable eating habits that can promote fat loss with the comparison without compromising nutrition? So obviously intermittent fasting could be one. Um,
Yeah, I think the main thing for most people is just switching to a whole food diet and eating more organic foods. And like that switch right there for 90% of the average Americans, that's going to make a huge difference in your life. And it's going to feed your body nutrients for once. And you're going to have a less chance of overeating. You know, as I talked about with the McDonald's meal versus the healthy meal, you can have 1,200 calories either way. One's going to give you a bunch of nutrients, one's going to absorb really quick and make you hungry in an hour, right? And so just switching to whole food diet, the appetite control is a big part of that too. You know, we talked about how your body produces its own Ozempic, its own GLP-1 hormone, and that it doesn't do that with processed foods. And so that's a big reason for overeating in most people that just eat unprocessed foods, prepackaged foods. Um, Also, it seems, if your body's like deficient in a certain vitamin or mineral or nutrient, it kind of triggers that appetite too, because your body's saying, hey, I'm low on calcium or vitamin, whatever, and I need you to go find some of that. And so I'm going to give you a hunger signal so that you eat more, and hopefully I get some of that. But if you eat a whole bunch of food that is just nutriently dead, doesn't have those nutrients in it, it hasn't gotten the signal that it's okay. I've filled up on that nutrient. You can stop eating now. It keeps saying, hey, I need more because I haven't gotten these nutrients that I need to function. Keep feeding me. And so when you're eating a whole food diet, especially organic foods, because they have a higher vitamin, mineral, nutrient content in them, you're going to have less chance of overeating. You're going to feel healthier and better, and your body's going to function correctly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you're going to be putting less glyphosate and chemicals and poisons in your body too, and you healthier gut microbiome. Everything just functions so much better just from eating whole food diet rather than the standard American diet. And so, that's probably the number one thing. If somebody's working with me and they're like really overweight, they got 50 plus pounds they want to lose, and they've been eating just the standard American diet. Before we even worry about counting calories or anything else, it's just, hey, let's just get you off the junk food and get you on the whole food diet. Let's learn how to cook for yourself. Let's start with that. And they lose a quick 10, 20 pounds like right away just from making that switch. Somebody that's been drinking soda, high sugar soda, uh, they got a 2 liter a day habit or, something like that just by getting rid of that one thing and drinking more water. You're going to lose a quick like 20 pounds, like real fast. So little things like that, I think that's probably the number one thing. And then just a well-rounded diet. Again, I'm not into like super low carb diets as a long-term thing. I think there's a good place for that for like some short-term weight loss. You got a vacation in 2 weeks. You want to try to lose as much fat as you can. Okay, let's do a low carb for 2 weeks. But for long time sustainability, we need something that is sustainable, something that is you're going to be able to follow. And I don't know about you, but I like carbs, and I wouldn't want to give those up for the rest of my life. And so eating more just well-rounded whole food diet, having some carbs, you need fats, you need proteins, you need all the macronutrients. And so just eating a well-rounded whole food diet, I think is, the most important thing for 99% of people.
yeah, no, it's super important, and I think you did a good job with that. And the whole food is really essential on the hormonal response your body's going to have. I mean, getting back to the earth and the ground stuff, it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's really good. I actually started seeing some of the best changes in my body at its peak when, and I've been all natural. So, but I've gotten the most lean that I've ever gotten when I have eaten strictly
Yeah,
all whole food diet.
yeah,
Didn't play around with really anything else other than just whole foods and proper supplementation.
yeah.
And it goes really far. So I think people don't actually, they think they need this 3-step plan to low carb, your low carb 14-day blitz or whatever that, it is, to get to where you're trying to get. But, and like
Yeah.
it's important, and there's certain times and places for it to manipulate it, whether it's, using ketogenic or, paleo or whatever else is out there, intermittent fasting and,
Yeah. And again, some people just need a set of rules to follow. And
absolutely. Yep.
if that requires eliminating an entire macronutrient group so that you don't, it's easy to overeat on carbs. Yeah, it's easy, most snacks are carb-based snacks, right? And so when you eliminate those and you tell yourself you can't eat those, and then you're like, well, geez, I got nothing to eat. I guess I just will go hungry. Yeah, you're gonna lose some weight faster. Guess what? And
You're
so
so right.
it's
Yeah.
gonna work. It's gonna work for that reason too. So whole food diet is number one, and then once you got that down, then we just start controlling portion sizes. Right? We go back to the calories in, calories out, and if you can control your portion sizes, then you can not be in a caloric surplus. You can get into a caloric deficit, and you can start losing some weight that way too. Right? So once that initial kind of switch from whole food, you'll have this initial weight loss that'll kind of plateau out. Now we can start working on portioning those foods out and getting the correct portion sizes so that we, if you're lifting weights during this process too, you want to meet that protein requirement. So you want to be eating enough protein so that your body has the building blocks that it needs to support that muscle mass and all the other things that it needs protein for. And then you want to be in a slight caloric deficit, number two. And so if you do those two things, you can, build muscle and burn fat at the same time. And if you dial that in a little tighter and start portioning out your foods.
Yeah, that's really good. Whole foods, building muscle, and
Portion
uh,
sizes.
portion sizes. Yeah,
Yeah.
you do those, you're going to go really far. And
Yeah.
that that ties into the next question, which is the icing on the cake, right? You got your foundation, and that's supplementation. Really confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Tons to choose from, a lot of different avenues and a lot of bogus supplements out there. So if we want to enhance fat loss, how does supplementation affect and help enhance that? And what do you recommend? And what's the best avenue to go down when it comes to supplementation on how it affects?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different ways that supplementation can help you with fat loss. And again, the main goal here is the calories in, calories out. We got to burn more than we take in. And so two ways that, supplements can help you is by burning more calories. And then the other way is on the calories in part, helping you reduce calories by suppressing your appetite, right? That's what Ozempic does. But and there's other ways too, like, so for example, when we made the high metabolism product there, I just looked at all the different kind of challenges that we face in dieting and like what would make fat loss easier. And so it's obviously if we can burn more calories, we can have a faster metabolism. That's going to help us. And then if we can have more appetite control, that's going to help us. But some of the other challenges that kind of come with dieting too is, having low energy, having the foggy brain, not being able to focus and stuff, and feel like you need to go eat some food here to help you focus. And then being in a bad mood, getting kind of hangry and kind of grumpy, when your blood sugar gets low or when are in that caloric deficit. And especially for somebody that, if you've been living in a caloric surplus for a while, as soon as you go to this deficit, you're going to be faced with all of these challenges. And so with high metabolism, we've got multiple supplements or ingredients in there that help you burn fat through different pathways. There's stuff in there that raises your metabolism, as we talked about earlier. So your body's just running at a little faster pace, burning some more calories throughout the day. Even if you're sitting at the desk or whatever, you're still burning more calories than you would be had you not taken that. And so it's going to speed up your weight loss that way. We put cayenne pepper in there too. Cayenne pepper is a thermogenic, and it helps you burn off more body fat as heat. And so just raising your core temperature. And so you're burning some extra fat off that way. Your body's releasing this energy through heat. So it's two really strong ways that it works there for fat loss. The appetite control is a big aspect too. And so, as soon as you start trying to eat less, your body's going to say, I'm hungry all the time. I need more food, because it's so used to this larger amount of calories that you would normally take. And so we put there's an ingredient in there called Garcinia cambodia, which is a pretty powerful plant-based appetite suppressant. And that just like tames that lion roaring in your stomach because, otherwise you're just like thinking about food all the time
Oh
and
yeah.
when's my
Oh,
next
yeah.
snack and I've got to go eat and I can't focus on work because I'm doing this. And so it really just kind of, like I said, tames that lion in your stomach. And so you're just not thinking about food all the time. That makes it a lot easier to stay in that caloric deficit too. And then those other things, like I talked about, the mental focus. We mentioned lion's mane being one of those, and lion's mane helps in with the mental focus, neuroregenerative, right? Helps you build new brain neurons, helps with memory, all that stuff. And lion's mane also has fat burning properties too. So it's kind of a double whammy there. It's helping you with burning with your metabolism, and it's helping you with your mental focus. And then there's another really cool ingredient in there called beta-phenylalanine. It's a handful, but that's a mood enhancer. And so that actually helps you release happy hormones like dopamine and serotonin in your brain. And so you're just in a little happier mood, and you're just, everything's it's a lot easier to get to the gym and work out. It's a lot easier to eat healthy when you're just in a better mood and you don't feel sorry for yourself and down all the time because you're dieting. And yeah, and that's sorry for yourself. It's a pretty big issue too. Like our
Oh
bodies,
yeah, yeah, yeah. You
oh,
nailed it.
I deserve to eat. Oh, I'm such pain right now. Where, if you can kind of control that a little bit and get past that, you can force yourself to stay in that caloric deficit so that you're in the weight loss mode.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's why high metabolism works so good, is because it tackles multiple aspects of, I call it a fat loss enhancer. And so it is helping you just in every aspect that you face, the challenges that you face when it comes to losing weight.
Yeah. And I would even circle back up on, I've tried a lot of different proteins. There's a lot out there. And I would definitely say yours is the number one go-to on
Okay.
taste and just its mixology portion. Like it doesn't get all clunky. It's just perfect. But when
Mm.
you're talking about getting adequate amounts of protein, especially when building muscle and having that 1 pound per muscle to be able to raise your metabolism and burn off fat, it's having a protein shake specifically. It's like something Sean offers is really great way for you to get to hit your protein numbers, to get that protein to sustain your appetite as well, and to continue to recover properly and have a great tasting, mouth-watering shake in your mouth that just is out of
Yeah,
this
it's,
world.
it's like the highlight of the day when you're
It really is. It's like
eating
it's like the
diet food, or trying
yeah,
to eat
yeah, the
super
guilty
clean.
pleasure of,
It's
you
like a
know,
nice little dessert, nice little treat.
yeah.
But yeah, it's helping you meet that protein requirement too. And for a lot of people, it can be hard to eat another 6 ounce chicken breast where you can just go gulp, gulp. And I just had maple cinnamon French toast and it tasted amazing. And I got, 40 grams of protein there. Boom. It makes it a lot easier to meet those protein requirements. As I said before, like the main two kind of numbers to focus on when it comes to weight loss is number one, protein, or you got to be in a caloric deficit. I like to be in a slight caloric deficit, not a huge caloric deficit. And then number two is the grams of protein you're eating. The goal is zero 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per body pound is kind of the window you want to try to stay in. And that protein shake makes it a lot easier to hit those numbers
Like
and
it.
tastier.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff. Yeah, Sean, this is super helpful, specifically when it comes to fat loss and speeding up the process and enhancing the process through working out, nutrition, and building muscle. These are great takeaways. I'll create a breakdown for this episode as well as the content. We'll get this on YouTube so everybody can watch this. And Sean, where can people learn more about you and what you offer? You Facebook, Instagram, your website, and any programs you may have, so they can get a hold of you to learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get me on Instagram. The handle is Rocksolid Harley. And then Facebook, just find Sean Harley. Sean Harley Fitness is my public page. Sean Harley is my personal page. Hit me up either one of those. Rock Solid Training is my training. So I do online coaching. So if you want to work with me on like a month-to-month basis, we can do that. I write your workouts, your diets. I give you my Physique Masterclass. I teach you the mind muscle method and show you the way. And then we also have my Physique Masterclass, which is another product by itself you can get, which is a online video course that I've made that will
For
teach you
great things.
basically everything you need to know about building fat and burning muscle and doing it in the most effective way possible. And so, yeah, my website's Rock Solid Harley. You can check out my supplement company, Rocksolid Nutrition, at rocksolidnutrition.com and get some of the best supplements on the market.
Awesome. Yeah, they're great stuff. Go try it out. We'll have all the links in the description as well, so you can go check that out. And Sean, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a pleasure, and look forward to it in the future.
It's been absolutely wonderful, my man. Keep up the good work over there on your end.
Appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.